side has a narrow lead. Bobby Frankel's Derby deal up. He rolls to his inside. Empire Maker is giving it all. Funny side trying to pull up the upset here. 12-1 coming down to the line. And the gutsy gelding Funny side has won the 129th Kentucky Derby.
Well, that was Funny Side 19 years ago, taking down the Kentucky Derby when the gutsy gelding came out of a game second place performance in the Wood Memorial. Nick Tammaro here to go over the Wood Memorial with Darin Zoccali. Darin, can you believe it's been 19 years since Funny Side won the Derby, or is it harder to believe that that was the last time a Wood Memorial participant won the Kentucky Derby?
It's harder to believe that I'm getting that old, Nick, that was 19 years ago. That was actually the day after my ex-girlfriend's senior prom. I skipped the trip that weekend to go down to the shore with her to go bet Funny Side, believe it or not, in the Derby. My day at the Meadowlands with my dad. It ended up putting a lot of change in my pocket, but it actually cost me the girlfriend.
Hey, well, it might have been a decent trade-off if she's an ex now, but I was actually working at Lone Star Park as a mutual clerk while I was in college when Funny Side won, and I had a few tickets punched that ended up panning out too. Probably one of the only times I've ever cashed in the Derby. Let's hope that things go a little differently this time around. And of course, of all the people in the mix, you and I are probably the biggest fans of the Wood Memorial. We were joking offline about all of our bad opinions from Wood Memorial alums that have not panned out. This looks like an interesting Wood Memorial, though. I will say that we've seen some fields over the years that have been a little suspect in terms of depth, and we'll find out, of course, what we're getting out of this group, but it does look like a fun bunch.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I've bet horses like Tappet, Alpha, Gemologist, all those horses in the Kentucky Derby that didn't quite pan out. This race definitely has a lot more talent in terms of top to bottom than recent renditions of the race. It's going to be an interesting race because a lot of the talented horses are going to be jockeying for similar spots on the racetrack early on, which could make for a lively pace scenario. We'll see who survives or if somebody rallies from off the pace. Either way, I think the winner of this race, I'll have a bit more confidence than I have in recent years past.
I think that's a good way to put it. And one of the things you alluded to is that this does feel on paper like it's going to be a particularly fast-paced race. Let's start by talking about your top pick, Skippy Longstocking. That's going to be a bit of a price in here. I would imagine, somewhere in the 8-1 range or so, coming in off a win in a one other than for Saffie Joseph Jr., where he got a pretty enormous pace set up. And of course, you can't really hold that against him this time around because he's going to get a big pace set up once again.
Yeah, that's what it came down to on paper for me. I really had a hard time deciphering which of the horses that are going to be forwardly placed that I really like the most. It was hard for me to figure out which one is going to survive the pace scenario. And the other closer in the race, Mo Donegal, I have some questions about his temperament that we'll talk about in a little bit. Skippy Longstocking, I went back, I literally watched all his replays, Nick. He just looked like a completely different horse to me last time out. He relaxed early, where in previous races he was on the muscle and forcing the early pace. It might have been a product of the fact that they went 45 seconds to the half. I'm not expecting that, but it was the difference between a lone sprinter on the lead in that race versus a contentious pace here going long. He's proven around 2 turns in a mile and an eighth, and he looks like he's just physically developed and matured in those last couple of races, culminating with a big win last time when he finally got around 2 turns. I think he could build off that performance. He's going to get a lively pace scenario again, and at a square enough number, I don't think he's that far behind the best of these that it really is worth dismissing him at any kind of a reasonable price.
I think that's a fair statement. Saffie Joseph Jr., of course, bidding to get a second runner in the gate after winning last Saturday's Florida Derby with White Barrio. My pick is Mo Donegal. And I think with Mo Donegal, we all sort of know the scenario. He's a horse who won a Remsen that was a little controversial in that there was some interference late in that race that likely affected Zandon, who, of course, will contest Saturday's Bluegrass. Mo Donegal came back with what I thought was it's a better effort in the Holy Bull than it looks on paper. I think the running line belies the quality of the race that he ran, and obviously finishing third behind the likes of White Barrio and Simplification, given what they've done since, looks a lot better. And just like your thought with Skippy Longstocking, he really stands to benefit from the expected pace scenario here. The difference, I think, in terms of what we'll see strategically is that Irad has kind of kept after him a little bit in his last couple of starts, understanding that he's a horse that seems to stop and start a lot along the way, whereas Joel is likely to let him settle and make one run. And I think this is the ideal situation for him to settle and make that one run. There's a significant amount of speed in here. And when he finally, I'm also very surprised that Todd is not trying the blinkers. I thought that this was a horse that was kind of a ready-made case for blinkers, given that he ran in spots, but Todd Pletcher's won quite a few more races than me. So I'll trust that this is a result of his best judgment. I'm interested in seeing what Mo Donegal can put forth. And obviously running over a racetrack where he's been successful certainly doesn't hurt. I think we both agree that the interesting horses, I would almost call early voting more so than Morello the linchpin in the race, because he comes in off a Withers win that was earned in wire-to-wire fashion, where he flew out of the gate. Jose Ortiz kept him 3 to 4 paths off the inside. That was a pretty well-documented kind of dead inside, and he never looked back. I think coming out of it, we all felt like, he was the right horse, best horse in a situation where the field was relatively weak. Then we started seeing these subsequent performances that were all pretty solid, and the speed figures adjusted to a certain extent. He looks like the main speed on paper, but there still are a lot of question marks.
There are a lot of question marks. He's going to get pushed by horses like Morello on the outside. AP Secret is another that's going to be forwardly placed as well. The horse to his inside, Golden Code, wants to be aggressive early. So that really comes down to, from a pace scenario, what kind of a spot early voting is going to be in. He might be able to go out to the front here and lead this field by 2 again, and we'll see how things shake out late. A lot of the speed figures did get adjusted. One of them that did not get adjusted, though, was the Ragozin figure. The Ragozin sheets say he's just too slow to win this race. And I'm curious to see which speed figure is going to be right, because he's literally 5, 6, 7 points behind the other main contenders coming out of that Withers. So we'll see which speed figure is right, but he's going to have to survive some type of an early pace contentious scenario in order to last in the lead here.
Yeah, I also wonder if a little bit of the subsequent performances from the also rans maybe don't hold up to scrutiny either. Because, for example, of course, Unojo came back and won the Rebel. And I mean, it was not exactly a Rebel that would hearken you back to American Pharaoh. It was a weak race. He came back and ran poorly in the Arkansas Derby. Grantham, who was going to run in Saturday's Bluegrass, came back and ran second in the Tampa Bay Derby. I don't think anybody's buying stock in the Tampa Bay Derby as a key Kentucky Derby prep at this point. You mentioned Morello, who, of course, is 3 for 3 and has taken kind of the old school progression distance-wise. My father used to always tell me that the plan in New York was Swift, Bayshore, Gotham, Wood. And so he's kind of gone a little bit of that. Going 6, 7, 8, and now 9 furlongs. He's passed every test with flying colors. Pedigree-wise, it looks like he should have no problem with the extra distance. That is the real question.
It is. And physically watching him on the racetrack, I'm not sure how much farther he wants to go. He doesn't have that look to him where he's just gobbling up ground in the stretch like Mo Donegal was in the last race he ran at Gulfstream. He leveled off. He drew clear nicely. I question what he beat there that day in the Gotham Stakes, and he might get a good spot. The one thing that he has going for him is that he has shown an ability to rate, be tractable, and be able to pounce and draw clear, whereas a horse like early voting has either been right on the pace or wire to wire. So he does have that going for him, but that's kind of where I shied away and looked towards a price coming from off the pace, because early voting looks to be a big time speed horse. Morello is a horse that I wonder how far he just wants to go. And once I get past the 2 of them and I start looking for prices, that's how I landed up on Skippy Longstocking.
I think it makes perfect sense. Those are the main players in this race. And Morello is a horse that, much like early voting, because a lot of them are so lightly raced, and this is still something that's relatively new to us, somebody's going to have to do something a little different than they've done before, I think, to be successful of those pace types, whereas Mo Donegal can probably do maybe just a little bit better version of what we've seen from him and be successful there. Darin, good luck with the Wood Memorial. Hopefully we'll see that funny side curse get broken a little bit. He was the kind of horse who broke a few curses himself back in his day.
Yeah, that is absolutely for sure. Jockey Club Gold Cup and other races as he get older that he pulled out of nowhere. But yeah, I think this is a better edition. And whether or not there's a Derby winner in here, I think there's some future Grade 1 stakes winners in here, even after the Wood Memorial.
I couldn't agree more. Fun version of the Wood Memorial for Saturday afternoon, one of the 100-point preps in the final of the series, leading us to the Kentucky Derby. For Darin Zoccali, Nick Tammaro, wishing all of you best of luck.